I'm Summer Huntington of Steel Mace Vinyasa and Shala, and today I'll be talking about how to swing a 10-pound club in a throwing pattern, also known as a mill. A mill is a throwing pattern, which means that I'm bringing my loaded club into back position and I'm revolving my trunk in yaw or rotation. I'm extending at my elbow and carrying all the load from my core and all of the knees, the hips, everything from below this kinetic chain, below the waist, propelling that into a full throw. So I'll go in reverse order. I'll first show an actual single-handed mill, and that's what we're working up to. And I'll show some regression exercises to help you make sure that you have healthy shoulders, happy shoulders, non-injured shoulders as you perform this. So the end result looks like this. Do not start here. Start with what I'm gonna demo ahead of time. Rotate the body. Push, swing, pull, catch in order position. Notice I'm kind of shifting my weight here. I bring my club into back position, swivel the body, cast, swing, catch. Back position, little tail swing there. Cast with a straight elbow, elbow lock, 90-degree bend in the arm as I catch. My elbow's married to my rib. I bring my club into back position while simultaneously rotating the body so that I'm facing the opposite direction. Cast, swing, catch, and then dynamically, when you take out those pauses, it looks like this. Now this is a very advanced exercise. I don't recommend beginners start here, but you want to know where you're going, and the purpose of training with a heavy club is actually to train that throwing pattern, which is one of the 4 key primal movement patterns that we train with leverage tools. So we've got our order position. And when you're looking at a mill, try to analyze each of the landmarks. So this is a landmark. I'm essentially here in order position, and then I didn't move my arm into external rotation to achieve the position. Instead, I did a little side hip root and rotated my trunk, so there's a little swivel in the knee here, to achieve that position. So I start by landmark 1, order, back position, order, that's number 3. A semicircle swing with a straight elbow, back to order. So position 1, order, that's a landmark. Back position, if I did it slow, that would be technically like a in-between transition here. Rotate body. It's hard to get that tail whip with your staccato style here. Pull it back into my order position. I cast, swing, catch. Back position, order, little swivel. Cast, swing, catch. So look at the coordination required for me to get the timing to get the club to actually do the right thing. So I go back position, rotate as soon as it comes over the head, and notice I'm in this kind of feet pointed straight ahead, but I'm in this what's called side hip root here, so it really becomes a leg exercise. Cast, swing, catch, back position, rotate, order, cast, swing, catch. This is known as a mill. When we do it staccato, we're landing in the landmark. When we do it dynamically, we're still landing in the landmark briefly, but we're going quickly right into the next landmark. So adding in speed. All right, so beginners definitely need to clear a few different ranges of motion. You can do this with a 10-pound club, or if you need a lighter load, you can definitely start with a mace. I'll show it with a club and with a mace, just kind of alternating out so you can see the 2 positions. Crossing the plane of the frontal plane and sagittal plane, you need to be able to cross those 2 planes in order to achieve a proper mill. A lot of times when people don't have that ability to cross between the planes, we can really put our rotator cuff, muscles and the tendons in our shoulder at risk for a tear because there's not a smooth transition, and we really need to work on that eccentric load, so the ability to shock absorb in the exercise, in the movement, to prevent any tears. So please be safe with your shoulders. Let's go through the regressions. All right, so regression 1, you could do this from a mountain pose position, or I like to take my athletes into a kneeling lunge position here because it forces me to now think about my back glute and fire it. I punch energy out through my opposite arm so that both lats get engaged. I marry my elbow to my rib here. From the front, it looks like this. I start in my single-handed order, back position, order. Back position, order. From the side, my back glute is on and stabilizing. My lat is turned on and firing. I've got crown to coccyx alignment. I've got core, lats and glutes working together. You can do these really slow grind, building that absolute strength with a helper hand. You can do them a little faster here. You can drop your thumb to your t-shirt. I know Mark teaches that style. in my style, I tend to be building with lighter weights and building the rotator cuff and smaller stabilizing muscles. So I like to challenge myself to keep a fixed angle here. Because when I'm here, I'm forcing my tricep to elongate under load. If I drop down here, I have to turn everything back on in order to get the club back to the order position. So let's keep it firing, hence increasing our isometric contraction of our stabilizers. So wrist, forearm strength, rotator cuff. That's why I go here. Again, there's no right or wrong, there's just different lenses of movement. Let's switch sides. Landmark number 1, we've got our order position. Back glute on, creating stability in the lats, glutes, and core. The trifecta first. Inhale, back position, exhale, order. Landmark 1, order. Landmark 2, back position. And I get a slight little elbow bend, but I'm not relaxing it all the way here and then pulling it back out. Again, different schools of thought. I'm training isometric load here and isometric stability of my rotator cuff, and then building and increasing my tricep mobility here in eccentric load. So once you've cleared a single-handed shoulder cast, you can then progress into this little rotator cuff drill. So we start in order position. This is going to be our first external rotation here, which means I'm coming out of order, and now I'm staying true to my shoulder mobility here. I might have limited range here, and that's fine. And now I'm coming into from my modified side flag into my back position, holding my club strongly, bringing it back into that modified side flag, and closing the door. So order, external rotation. This puts our rotator cuff at a slightly more sensitive range, because now I'm not in this closed position here. I'm now a little bit open, so I'm a little more vulnerable, so be careful. You could even go back position here, help it out, pull it back down. But we want to get the scapula to wing and tip. So from behind, when I bring my club into back position, my scapula, if you could imagine, is winging and tipping. And that's a healthy degree of freedom for the scapula to be able to wing and tip. Let's try it on the other side. Order. I'm balancing the muzzle, the heavy part of the club, over the handle, which requires a lot of grip strength. I've got neutral wrist here. I find my degree of external rotation. My glutes are on and firing. You could also do this from a mountain pose, standing. I go into my back position. I feel my scapula wing. I pull it back down into a neutral scapula, and I close the door. So here is rotator cuff under load. Here is subscapularis and also teres major, teres minor, infraspinatus, supraspinatus, all the rotator cuff muscles working together with the subscapularis. As the club comes into back position, we pull it back down. So why is this important to be able to do the sagittal plane movement? In a mill, when you're pulling the mace or the club into back position and revolving the trunk, if you've never trained it isometrically and you're just going straight into a ballistic movement, it can be a little jarring for the body. From a motor control and kinesiology perspective, I like to do things slow with isometric control before I do it fast. So I'm gonna drop down to my lighter mace here and show you how to cross the planes. So we start in our order position, single-handed order position. We go into back position, we open out and come into a modified side flag. Again, my humerus bone, my arm bone, is externally rotated, different than in a mill. In a mill, I would be here. So I'm here. Take it in reverse, back position, close, order, back position, open out, modified side flag. Again, training that external rotation, which the rotator cuff is all about external rotation. Back position, close it up, order. When I find my shoulder pack here, I'm getting my lat to engage with my serratus anterior, my subscapularis, everything in my rotator cuff as well is also firing. Switch sides. From the side, we go back position, open out, modified side flag. Again, there's no dynamic movement here. I'm just going nice and slow grind style, building that absolute strength. And also there's an element of proprioceptive awareness too. As my mace goes into back position, I open out to modified side flag. I'm starting to learn the path of the mace and that my mace is safely going to go behind my back without striking me in the head. Now this is a pretty long mace. I've got a few different sizes, but this one I chose today is a little long. So notice the length here, the length difference. So when people talk about swinging clubs versus swinging mace, there's a huge difference simply in the physics and the mechanics of the mace and the physics behind swinging a shorter, more heavy tool. It's actually heavier than that, and that is longer and lighter with a ball on the end. So if you are strong enough to do this with a 10, go for it. If you want to drop down to a 5-pound club, go for it as well. If you want to start with a wooden dowel, you can do it too. Order position, back position, open out, side flag, back position, close it up, order. Back position, open up, side flag, back position, cross the planes. Frontal plane, sagittal plane, frontal plane. Switch sides. This requires tremendous grip strength. And again, you want to not hold this with your very small bicep muscles, but you want to get your scapula seated in that neutral position so you can bear load from the lat. Here we go. Back position, open out, side flag, back position, close it up, order. Back position, side flag, back position, order. Slow and controlled. Really feeling the stabilizing muscles in the shoulder and rotator cuff doing the work. Last one. So let's say we want to put that into a mill. We want to start with the staccato style mill. You can bring your club into your single-handed order position, rotate the body. You definitely want to make sure you have a good inside circle. Inside circle into order. Shoulder cast, little tail whip out, back to order. Cast, swing, catch, back position, order, single-handed inside circle, order, back position, order. So from behind, it looks like this. You can do this with a big degree of elbow flexion, so dropping the thumb to the t-shirt. You could do it a little bit more with a not so bent elbow. For this one, when I do it more dynamically, I find my elbow's a little happier if I drop my thumb to my t-shirt. But again, when I'm training stability first, I have the fixed angle at the arm. Other side, I start in my order position, head on, feet are hip distance apart. Rotate the trunk, 45 degrees. Cast, swing, catch, square it up. Again, we're not in external rotation here. That was just for regressing and training. We're here in our single-handed order. Back position, single-handed inside circle, order, back position, little tail whip there. I like to feel my elbow hitting my oblique. It signals my oblique to turn on and stay on. So challenge yourself. Can you keep your core on the whole time, and can you make that mind-muscle connection every time your elbow hits your oblique to keep it on? All right, so just to recap, we covered staccato style mill. We covered crossing the planes with our single-handed cast and our single-handed modified side flag to back position. We covered putting those together, training isometric load, and then doing it a little bit more dynamically from a mountain pose position. Steel clubs are an amazing training tool. They train your entire wrist, forearm, shoulder, the entire kinetic chain, traveling all the way down to the ankles, the hips. When we train with leverage tools, we start to feel different. There's a consequence. We have to be completely present when training with leverage tools. If you're curious about this, check out the links below. We've got some workshops coming up. Heavy clubs in Seattle coming up in October. I'll be teaching that at least once or twice a year. It's an in-person event and a 2-day this time, and I'm working on a brand new product as well. With the heavy clubs and then complementing it with Mace. So if you want to stay in touch about any and all things clubs, take a look in the description. There should be a little email waitlist where you can get on to be the first to hear about our club events and products. Hope you learned a little something. Leave a comment below and can't wait to see you in a live training seminar.